Hi there, viewers. Today, I'm joining a conversation with Craig Deegan, the author of Far or Four, the CrackLock Saga. That's the book one. And I also have the book two here, The Lost and the Departed, and the book three, Alice and the Mirror Glass, which I'm currently looking forward to reading. But it's a pleasure to have Mr. Craig on the show. Hi there, Craig Deegan.
Hi, Peter. Thanks so much for having me. It's very much appreciated. It's good to finally see you after all of our correspondence as well.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Hey, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. You know, Craig, I'm fascinated with your book, Far or Four, the CrackLock Saga. And I think this is my first time reading a memorable fantasy book. Now, I'm curious, how do you develop such a great passion and strength for fantasy? And how does this book come about?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
It's kind of strange, to be honest with you, that I write fantasy, because what I prefer to read is horror and detective stories. That said, when I was younger, much younger than I am now, those days are long gone. I used to read. There's a series of books called the Fighting Fantasy books. They were choose your own adventure ones. If you're familiar with those, where you read a paragraph and it tells you if you want to do this, choose this number. If you want to do that. I've always loved fantasy from that respect, but I haven't read too much of it because I've always been more drawn to horror. Now, the thing about Fay or Foe, how did the actual original story come about? It's a funny story. My daughter, when she was much at bedtime, she used to like to read these fairy stories. Okay, I'm not talking about the Brothers Grimm or anything like that. There were a series of books. Well, I say a series, there are hundreds of them, but they are all the same story. Okay, it's always two kids, meets fairy, cute fluffy animal, fights the goblins boss, beats the goblins boss, book finished. And they're all the same, but my heart used to fall when she pulled out the latest version of this book to read to her. And so it got me sort of started wondering, if people really hated fairies, what could they do about it? And it's sort of built from there. And then I started seriously thinking, well, what happens if somebody really didn't like fairies and they wanted to kill them off? What would happen then? And that was really how the story started. It's this idea of this family who hated the fairies, the Cracklocks. And then obviously I couldn't just write about somebody blundering about killing fairies off here, there and everywhere. So we had to have sort of a balance to that. And that's where Jack and his family came into it. And there's some of the history in the first book and so on. So really the idea for the story came from reading those blooming awful fairy books to my daughter about 7-8 years ago. So that's kind of where it came from.
That's actually great. I love the sound of that. Now, if you to look at Far and Four very well, considering the depth of the story, I'm curious to ask you: do fae or fairies exist, or they're just mere imaginary creatures?
Oh, I can't answer that really, if I'm honest with you, because the thing is, there's lots of documented sightings of fairies, supposedly, that people have seen, and there's a lot of people who are experts in fairy and folktale lore. All I can say is I've never seen one. I suppose I'd like to think they were real. It's something a little bit mystical and something a little bit outside the norm. But I can't say definitely that yes, they exist or no, they don't. I do know that they make a very good story, and there is so much information documented about all the different types and things, which must have come from somewhere. So whether that has a foundation in reality or not, I don't know. But yeah, that's really my opinion. Is I'm not sure that they exist. I'd like to think that they may do.
All right, thank you for that. I love that. Now, in your book, you also wrote a numerous time about an aging disease that affects children and suddenly make them old overnight. I found the introduction of this disease quite alluring, and in my perception, it added more wisdom to the book and added more beauty to the book. Now, could you tell us about this aging disease? Was it based on a mere occurrence, or it's just a mere fiction?
It's completely my warped imagination, I'm afraid, that one, because it was written well before the COVID epidemic as well. We'd not heard of COVID when I actually wrote that part. What I needed was, I needed a reason really for but something that was happening in the story, the good guys in it would eventually find out about and have to do something about. Now, that was the reason why I put it in. I mean, and then I was sort of thinking, well, if it's going to be fairy related, it needs to be, somebody who can actually maybe see the fairies, which would be the smaller children who supposedly can see them before the world gets on top of them, if you like, and they grow up a little bit. So it's their sense of wonder of being able to see them. So I needed something in the book that was the reason for that, something that the bad CrackLocks were doing, because they're behind it. Completely out of my imagination. It's not based on a real occurrence, that one. I wrote that well before we even heard of COVID as well. I think it was 2019 I wrote that. So I mean, really what I was looking for, I needed a reason within the book, and also to introduce one of the key characters who roll the tube, who I'll talk about it in a little while. But what I was looking for was something that the bad CrackLocks were doing to serve their purpose for what they are, their aim, intention, which is to destroy all of the fairies. So what I did was I kind of thought about it, and I thought, well, if they were doing something to, maybe the children who can see the fairies, they could be using bad fairies in order to accomplish this goal. I mean, basically what the aging disease is, they're sucking the life out of the younger children, the life force out of them, which ages them. It doesn't kill them off, but it obviously turns them into older people. The purpose of them doing that is revealed in book 2. But as I say, I needed something that the good guys would then strive to try and stop as part of the overall plot. And so that is really where that came from. It's out of my own warped imagination, if I'm honest with you, as to that particular disease. So, yeah,
that's actually great. Yeah, that's actually great, because when I read about the agent disease, I think I went on Google and I went to search if there's anything like that.
No, all my own work, that one, I'm afraid.
Now, Craig, in one of the conversations that exists between a character, Elsie, Jack, and the ferret, you wrote about realm travels. And I am curious if this has to do with the power of disappearance. I don't know if you've experienced one or you've seen one. Could you tell us a bit about realm travels?
Yeah, of course. This came about. I read a book a few years ago about it was a missing person, a young lady. She disappeared and she was gone for 20 years, and she came back, but she was still the same age as she was when she vanished. Wow. And obviously her brother and parents have all aged, because anyway, as it transpired, what happened, she was kidnapped by fairies and taken to the fairy realm. Now, time is different in the fairy realm. She was only there about 6 months before so she only aged 6 months, but in our realm, if you like, it was 20 years had gone by. And it sort of fascinated me, this whole thing about this time transition between the fairy and our realm and so on. Now, the fairies, obviously they can go back to fairy whenever they like. They just disappear and reappear there. But I sort of thought, well, people, or lifers as they call us, because we're short-lived, they to do that, because that's some sort of weird power thing. So I had to, but because I wanted to put the realm travel and the portal stuff in there, I came up with this concept of the realm traveling. So basically, the way it works for people like us that can do it, i.e. the CrackLocks, who have the powers to do it, is you have to have 2 glyphs, if you like, or symbols. There's an unlock, there's an open one, and then there's an unlock one. You do is each different realm has a different sort of symbol. So what you do is you write the open one on a door, it falls off the door, you open the door, and that's a realm travel room, which is something that exists between the realms. Now, they have different coloured flames in there. They don't burn you, it just sort of indicates which realm you're travelling to. You go in there, you shut the door behind you, you then draw the unlock glyph on it and open, then the door will open and take you to where you want to be. When you're in the travel room, you have to be thinking about, I want to go here, I want to go there. It works for travelling in our realm as well as travelling between the realms, in the time transition. The difficult bit is you need to know the unlock glyph, because if you don't know that and you're in the travel room, you're stuck there forever. These rooms exist sort of outside of existence.
Well,
So once you're in there, you're stuck if you can't let yourself out. I mean, I think in the first book there, Fermi, the ferret, Fermarillion, he tells Jack, don't start playing about with this. I know it's all very weird and wonderful. Don't play about with it, because if you get stuck in there, we won't be able to find you. So that's really it. So that's really where the idea came from, is this traveling between fairy and that. And then I thought, well, you can travel within our realm, you can go to the different realms and things. The different realms really start to come into it from book 2 onwards. That's really about the realm travel. It's been able to, it's almost like teleportation, really, but it's not, if you follow.
yeah, that sounds quite amazing. I love the sound of that. Yeah. Craig, for readers like me who haven't read the second book, I haven't even unwrapped it, The Lost and the Departed. For readers like me who haven't read it, could you tell us a bit about it without giving too much of information away?
Yeah, sure. Right, book 2. To fill you in, books 1 and 2 were actually one long story when I first wrote it. Because I had no idea as a first-time author what I was doing, and I thought a novel of 200,000 words plus was a good idea. I've got a good friend who's also an author, and he read through it and he said, you need to turn this into 2 books. So that's what I did. That's what formed the second one. So basically, it directly picks up from book 2. From book 1. In it, you will learn about the tubes from the realms of the lost. At the end of book 1, you encounter the first tube. These are the tubes that the CrackLocks have used to suck the life out, but they're actually not magical items. They're actually a race of people that they've enslaved. So we'll learn more about the tubes and what's happening. We'll learn about the CrackLocks' master plan for destroying all the Fae all at the same time, and the guys have to scramble to stop them. And you'll also find out about CrackLock Manor, where most of the story happened. Now, this is the main home of the bad CrackLocks, has been in the family for generations, hundreds of years. It's not a very nice place. And when the good guys get captured and taken there's all kinds of stuff goes off. There's a particularly good scene, well, I think it's good, and a lot of people have commented on it, where Dorcas and Fermarillion have to escape from the jails underneath the manor. And it's how they go about basically rescuing their friends and family and putting a stop to the CrackLocks' plans. I can't say any more than that without giving the plot away, but there's quite a lot of action in it, in that one. Yeah.
I love the sound of that, and I'm really looking forward to reading it. I cannot wait to get to it. Now, let's talk about the book theory, because ordinarily reading the reviews of the third book, Alex and the Mirror, Glax, and Amazon, I am already fascinated with it. Now, without giving much information away again, and following on from The Lost and the Departed, could you give us a brief sneak into what a curious reader should expect in the third book series?
Sure. Okay. This one really is, there's 2 strands to book 3. The first one really is we get to meet the US CrackLocks, the CrackLocks from the Americas. Obviously, the books 1 and 2 are set pretty much in England. There's a whole story behind the US CrackLocks. They can see the Fae, but they don't have any of the abilities of any of the others. They can't realm travel, they can't use glamours or anything like that. And there's a whole reason for that, is they're frightened of the Fae. Now, I published a book last week, which is this one, The Tale of Nathaniel CrackLock.
That's a book 4?
But yeah, well, it's almost like book 3A. It's a standalone one. This one is set in the 17th century. And what it talks about, this is where one of the founding 3 members of the family, he has to run away from England because of the witch finders. They want to catch him and put him to death.
Wow.
So he runs away to America, but he gets himself a whole load of trouble in America. And that book explains why the US CrackLocks don't like the Fae and avoid them at all costs and have none of the abilities of the others. So that's where book 3 comes in. Also in book 3, we find out what happened to David CrackLock, who is Jack's dad. You'll find more about in book 2, but to give you, David disappeared when Jack was 4 years of age. And obviously in book 1, we find out Jack gets thrown into this world he knows nothing about. He was a normal teenager until the well, you've read the book.
Yeah.
So we find out what David CrackLock has been doing, and he has incurred the wrath of a US government department, which is the Department of Otherworldly Affairs, or the DOA. Now, what people may know them better as is, do you know the Men in Black, the mysterious government organisation that deals with aliens? There's been some films about it with Will Smith and things. That's who the DOA are. They're the Men in Black, and they're hell-bent on catching David CrackLock. Now, to do that, they need to capture the US CrackLocks in order to do it. And really, that's where the story goes. It's the whole battle against the DOA that our heroes have to undertake, and also to figure out what's happened to David so they can rescue him. And what book 4 then leads on to David's rescue. So so that's book 3. It's very much about the US CrackLocks and what David's been doing. People seem to like that one. A lot of people tell me that's the favourite one, and they're now telling me that they like this one as well. So I'm quite sure.
Yeah, that's great. I truly love the sound of this book, and I cannot wait to get my hands on it because I so much love the first book series 5 and 4, and I'm looking forward to experiencing the other books too. Now, taking a literal view at your character in 5 and 4, I'm talking too much about 5 and 4 because I've read it.
I'm glad you have.
Yeah, taking a literal view at your characters here, I'd say that you did a great job with your characterization. Talking about people like Jimmy, I love him so much, and his hilarious feature. People like Elsie, people like Sammy, people like Jack himself, people like Mr. Binks, the wicked old man, I'll call him. People like Sammy, Dorcas, Anastasia, Benedict, and the silly Lafayette twins, Maxon and Tal,
Yes.
etc. Now, they all feel so raw, real to me. And I'm curious to ask you, how do you choose the characters?
It's a really good question. The simple answer is most of them are based on people that I know. I'd never tell them who is based on who, and unfortunately they've never asked. But some of my friends and family, I think, probably figured out who they're based on. Others of them are they just pop in there. I kind of have an idea about a sort of a character that I need for a certain strand of the story, and they just pop in there. I mean, when I write the books, I do have a plot for them. I know where it starts and where it ends. But then, are you familiar with the term pantser? When you're writing, you just all sorts of things come in, you go off plot and everything else, and that tends to what happens with the characters that I create. And then obviously I need to breathe life into them. There was a good example of that in book 3 with the leader, DOA, the head of the DOA. He's actually becoming a major character now, and he was only ever supposed to be a bit part 1. But yeah, so in answer to your question, is that the people that I've known over the years and are still known now I've taken their qualities as I kind of see them, or I've really gone to town on their bad qualities in order to create these characters. So that's really just made up from scratch. But yeah, most of the Fae are based on people that I know.
That's great. That's quite fantastic. That's very, very fantastic. Now, you wrote in your book about most fairies displayed in movie are the imagination of gifted people who haven't met fairies before. Then Elsie, in a conversation, said that the only person who has met and written about fairy is Reverend Robert Kirk, a Scottish clergyman who wrote a book in 1691 called The Secret Commonwealth of Elves, Fauns and Fairies. When I made my research about this book and the author, I was stunned that it turned out to exist. And I'm curious if you could tell us a bit about this.
Yeah, sure. I don't know much about them, but I would say that all of the historical things and information that is in the books is real. It's all based on fact. And we'll talk a little bit maybe about the witches and stuff in a bit, but yeah, he was he's the 17th century. He was a minister and a scholar of folklore, and he wrote this book, The Secret Commonwealth of Elves, Fauns and Fairies. it was basically taken as one of the definitive texts, even though it's sort of 300-400 years old now. Scholars of fairy lore and things, and they still read it through quite a lot. It kind of rung a bell with me because I was looking for some way to justify, for Elsie to justify to Jack, and for me to justify to Jack the existence of fairies, because he didn't believe it. He was a 15-year-old teenage boy with a mobile phone, you know, who all of a sudden is thrown into this whole fairy world. So that was really the reason why that came up. So the Reverend Robert Kirk, he was a real person. He did write this book. He supposedly did see the fairies, which is why earlier on when you asked me the question about do I think they're real, I can't answer it. Some people think they are. Some people are definitely they are. Some people are on the fence like me. But, so yeah, he was a real person. He wrote this real book. Whether it's true or not, who knows?
Well, I love the look of that. Now, in Timothy's attempt to tell the history of Jack's family, Timothy is one of the characters in the book. Now, he said, and you wrote about the Theuritan movement in England when people started to reject the teaching of the Church of England, which is actually found from page 185. Your description of Theuritan and witches in Timothy's illustration and conversation is one of the reasons why I consider the book a reasonable source of history. Now, could you tell us a bit about the Theuritan movement?
Yeah, I mean, I'm no expert on it. I mean, I did do my research. As I mentioned before, I always make sure that everything's factually correct. I do take some liberties with it. And yeah, I mean, the Puritans were English Protestants who didn't like what was going on within the church. They wanted to be more of a humble people, from what I can understand. So what they did was they formed their own sort of Christian movement, which was the Puritan movement, where they were very much humble. They didn't amass lots of riches helping the people. They were poor, but they were more sort of spiritual about things like that. However, as part of that, I mean, the whole term, how do you say, dour, they didn't indulge in lots of parties or drinking or anything like that. They were very much sort of people who believed in the word of God and did God's will. But that's how I kind of view them. The reason I involved with it because he was a Puritan. It was Matthew Hopkins who was an English witch hunter. That's why I needed that to come into the book. He was the son of a Puritan minister. Now, he became what they called the Witchfinder General. That was a title that he gave to himself. He was never given it by Parliament, from what I understand. But what they did was they went and they hunted witches, people that they considered to be, responsible for witchcraft. The UK witch trials, I don't think are as well publicised as, say, the witch trials in America. You know, everybody said of the Salem witch trials and things, but they were there. And one of the founding fathers of the CrackLock family, there are three. There's Nathaniel CrackLock, who founded the line of the good CrackLocks, of which Jack and Elsie are part of. And then you've got Philippa, who is founded the line of the bad CrackLocks and the ones who want to exterminate the fairies. Now, book one tells you Philippa's reasons why she wants to exterminate the fairies, but she became a Puritan because her husband Elphias was, and it was the death of Elphias that caused all of this trouble with them wanting to kill the fairies. So, yeah, I mean, as I say, I'm no expert on Puritan religion, but that is how I view them. Is they're a strand of the church who were God-fearing, didn't indulge in partying or anything like that, really. Tried to do good work of the Lord, but it just so happened that the witchfinders came out of their ranks in England in the 17th century. So, I hope that explains a little bit about them. There's a whole raft already told, to be honest with you, because I didn't need it. I just needed the basics for the story structure.
Yeah, that's actually great, and I think it's a very good concept for the book.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, it fitted okay when I was doing it. I actually wrote all that stuff when I was on holiday. I was sat in the sunshine, and then all of a sudden I was like, I know all that. So I had to get my tablet and write it all. And I wrote all of that stuff within about 2 hours. A little bit of research. So yeah, I was quite pleased with that chapter.
Oh, That's great. That's pretty much great. Now, I'd also love to say that while I read your book, Far 4, I sense that you have a distinctive technique of storytelling. I mean, your author tone and transition is quite excellent. And the setting of the
Thank
book,
you.
ordinarily, is quite superb to me. And I'd like to know if you take this straight after a particular author. If yes, I'd love to know the author's name and how his writing styles influence yours.
Yeah, I have to say my main influence for the writing style is it comes from my horror reading background, and it's the father of horror, it's Stephen King. I mean, I love the way he writes his books.
Okay.
They're so rich with description and things, but he always shows you. He doesn't tell you, he shows you. And it's really that I suppose has influenced my writing style the most, is the way that he writes. I collect all of his books. I've got them all, and I've read all of his how to write books and things. And yeah, so his style has been a massive sort of influence on how I try and write. Obviously, I don't write horror. I mean, the books are getting a little darker as they progress, the series does, but they're not horror. Although one of my beta readers who's read book 4, Dire Sorrows, said that one of the things in there really, really upset her and gave her nightmares. So I might have to tone that down a bit. But yeah, Stephen King is probably my main influence. But I read a lot of horror and things, so I think that's where it kind of comes from.
That's actually great. It's quite interesting how these famous authors can actually inspire people and writers over there. It's very, very nice. Now, Craig, could you tell us about the spirituality of axe stones? I don't know if viewers over there can see it, and thank you very much for sending a copy over here. I consider it a sort of a fortune because I read some intriguing feature about it, power, magical features, usefulness, and thanks for gifting me one. But I'd love to consider it a fortune, and I'd love you to expand more on the spiritual qualities of axe stones.
Sure. I mean, the reason why I've got them, I mean, I've got this one.
But that's even much bigger than this. It's a little bit more smaller.
Yeah, this one's was one that I found at the beach. Basically, they are naturally occurring things with the hole through them by running water. Now, the reason they're in the book is for the main reason is and I'll talk about some of the other bits in a minute, is but when you look through this hole here, you are supposed to be able to see the hidden world through that hole. So basically the fairy realm, and you're supposed to be able to see and hear fairies if you look through it. No, I never. Someone's too big to carry out with me because I have to have all the dog stuff with me when I go walking. Yeah, so this is it. So I mean, yeah, the hagstones. I mean, they've been associated with spirituality, and they're mainly with good magic and things. I mean, there's different names for them. Some people call them witch stones. There's adder stones, fairy stones, hex stones, all sorts of stuff. And they're associated with protection, healing, and knowledge is what they're supposed to be done, associated with, and being able to see the fairy realm. What they're supposed to do is protect you from evil. They do that. They protect you against hags, witches, and evil spirits. What people used to do was they used to hang one above their door, which would protect you from evil spirits from entering the home, or they'd put them near the chimney breast to stop the spirits coming down the chimney here in England folklore. Sailors used to tie them to the ropes on the mast of their boats, basically to stop witches from clinging onto the ropes. That was supposed to be, so voyages of good fortune. They say if you wear it around your neck, it's supposed to give you good health and protect you from illness. If you put one on your keys, you're supposed to never lose your keys. I mean, I wouldn't try that because they're too heavy. But yeah, I mean, the main reason I included them in the book is because I needed something for people who weren't the CrackLocks, i.e. normal people like Jimmy, who you mentioned. Sammy is normal. She doesn't have any of the CrackLock abilities, to be able to see what the people they were with were. And so that's the reason why these are in. And there's some pretty innovative uses of them. In book 2, for example, there's a gentleman who has glasses made out of them. So he's got 2 of them, so we can see the fairy realm and stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's very ancient origins. They're made from water-worn stone. So they're either from rivers or the sea. There's worn this natural hole through them, and they were believed to have all kinds of magical powers associated with them. So I tried to send them out to people who when I send my packs out, there's always a hagstone in there with a little bit about the history of stuff on it.
Yeah, that's a great one. That's a great one. That's quite interesting. Now let's talk about your amazing package. I got a mug here. Thanks for sending over one. I'm gonna make a tea with it, and I'm hopeful that I won't see fairies in my tea or coffee. You got I don't know if these are fairies or what's it called? Maybe these Dorcas, maybe these Maxine. I don't know. I just give it a kind of a proposition. And one of them actually have this part got cut off along the line. I was like, oh my God, this thing is
broken.
Broken, yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
So there seems a little bit, I don't know, but we have you here, you're gonna talk about that. And this thing that looks like a key, it was in the same line as that of the art stone.
Yes, keep it.
Yeah, that's the key. And thanks for these ones too. I love to consider them, though there's something like a design, but I love to use them as bookmark. I really love to use them as book. And also the books, amazingly, and the letter well written. But I'm more particular about this. I don't know what to call. Maybe they are toys for children. Okay. Maybe.
Yeah, they're they're supposed to be the red caps. The nasty goblin things. Basically, when I put together these packages, as you've seen, you get a box with things in with the ribbon round it and so on. You didn't show the chocolate there though, Peter. Where's the chocolate? Oh,
I forgot to talk about the chocolate. It was really delicious. I nearly bite my tongue while eating it.
I'm joking. I assumed that you'd scoffed it all already before we did it.
It was pretty nice.
Good stuff. Yeah, I try and send out something that's is a nice package for people, because you can just get a letter through the post with a book in it. So when for people who I want to see the books and to appreciate them, I send out various bits and pieces. So there's a mug, there's bars of chocolate, these little figures. There's these ones as well. I don't think I put those in. These glow in the dark. My son was adamant that I should put them in. I think there's nothing to do with the books, but I kind of put them in. What I do when I run competitions every now and again, and people win one of the like you got, so you get some chocolate in there, some mugs and toys and bits, and the books signed and that sort of thing. It's just something, when people are nice enough to take the time like you've done. I just want to give a little bit of something back. So yeah, that's really why I do it. They're CrackLock goodie boxes. There's a few people have won them, and they all say about the chocolate. They all scoff that. I think that's the first thing to go normally before they even look to the box. So yeah, it's just something I like to do. Really, it's better than just sending in an envelope in the post. If you're a prize winner or a reviewer or something, you just makes you look at it and think, oh, okay, what's this then? It's a bit more intriguing than a envelope with a book in it. So yeah,
it's pretty nice. They're quite funny to see.
Good. No, I'm glad it finally got to you anyway. That was the main thing.
Because it actually takes quite a lot of time.
Yeah.
Now, could you tell us what publishing is like for a published author like yourself? What are the challenges, if any, that you've encountered in terms of marketing your book, and what are the mediums you've utilized so far in terms of promoting your books?
Yeah, okay. I mean, well, you being a published author yourself, you know the sort of challenges that us guys have, particularly when we're self-publishing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of thought that the actual publishing part is the easy part. I mean, write the book, tidy it up, and then you can publish it. I mean, I use Amazon, I've not used any of the wider venues. I mean, the books are set up, the numbers on them are set up to publish wide, but I just don't have time to do it at the moment because I work full time still. So the publishing part through Amazon is fairly easy. The system's very good. It's the marketing, really, as I'm sure you're aware, is the bugbear of many. It's getting the name out there, because I remember reading somewhere, I think there's something like 2,500 books a day published in America alone on Amazon. So you kind of get lost in all the noise. So it's really a question of, getting it in front of people, getting people to see, what's that? So you really need to have a decent cover and things like that. Something to catch the eye, first of all, and so on and so forth. What have I done about marketing? Well, I've tried pretty much everything. I've done Facebook ads and posts. They seem to be fairly well received. I've done Amazon ads. There's Brian Cohen's course is great for Amazon ads. If you want to learn about those, it gives you a good grounding in those to start off with. I've done Instagram posts. I've done paid marketing promotions. They're okay. They yield quite good results. Some of them are good, some of them are not so good. I've done YouTube adverts. You've seen the one thing I haven't tried, which people keep raging about, is TikTok. Bookstagrammers on TikTok. Now, I'm nearly 50. I have no idea how TikTok works or anything like that.
I don't even have an idea about TikTok. No, I've heard some people say I should get on TikTok, but I don't really know. I don't even have the app on my phone.
No, me neither. My daughter uses it, I think, and it's just posting little videos, I think, and getting it out there. But I don't know how to do it, if I'm really honest with you. And I don't have the time to post every day or something, a TikTok video, in order to build up my viewer thing. Hopefully one day, if I can ever move to writing full time, then I'll have the time to do it then. But there's been a lot of talk about TikTok recently, and people saying, it's the medium to be on because the book talkers, as they're called, they're a really great crowd, and they're very interested in books. That's why they're on there. They're looking for new books all the time. So that's the mediums I've utilised so far. I've pretty much tried everything, but I've settled more now on doing the Amazon ads and things like this, interviews with kind people like yourself who are willing to take the time. So that's how I kind of promote now.
That's great. That actually sounds nice. Now, is there anything that you would love to share with the viewers about your books that I did not mention in my interview and you'd love the viewers to know?
I suppose really it's the future plan, continuing to write them. Book 4, I've got 4 books out at the moment. There's books 1, 2, and 3 you showed there. There's this one that came out last week, which is The Tale of Nathaniel CrackLock, which I'll send to you at some point if you want to read that one, once you've had a chance to look at the others. Book 4 of the series is called Dire Sorrows. That is written. I'm just doing my edits on it now. Then it will go over to my editor this month. I'll probably release that one in November, I think, that one, which will be book 4 of the series. And then book 5 of the series, I've kind of made a start on as well. That one is called The Coins of the Realms. So
a lot of work.
Yeah, well, it's my hobby. It keeps me out of trouble while my wife's watching television. I sit in here and write. So
that's a lot of work.
I think there'll be six books in this series. I've then got to write. Thank you. I just enjoy doing it, to be honest with you. I'm going to write some backstories as well. There's Dorcas's backstory. There's Fermarillion's backstory I need to do. I know what happened in those. There's Elsie and Malchiah. The bad guy in the book, Malchiah? Dr. CrackLock.
Oh, Dr. CrackLock. Yeah.
Yeah, him and Elsie had a romance many years ago. So I need to write that. That's set in London in the 60s. So I'm quite pleased about that one. And then once I've done those, I'll move on to my next series, which is about Tobias. He's dark fae hunter. He's one of the Cracklocks. He's the younger child. He's the youngest brother of Malchiah, Obadiah, and Caiaphas. And Obadiah and Caiaphas you'll meet in book 3. They are the daughters of, the sons of Agatha, but then there's Tobias, who's the youngest, but he's turned his back on the bad Cracklocks. He does his own thing. So there'll be that series to come as well. So, yeah, a lot of future plans. I'd invite people to have a look at the website, CrackLockSaga.com. And I'm hoping if I can send you the YouTube advert for this book 3A, as it's called, you might post it underneath the comments for this, if that'd be okay.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Or I can add it in. So yeah, that's really where we are. There's a lot of plans going forward with it. There's going to be a lot of books, and I'll just keep doing it until it gets to the point where I can't type anymore. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great, because I need to say it again, like I said in my review. While I read this, the CrackLock Saga Fan 4, I am actually quite intrigued with it. Like, I so much love it. Talk about the writing style, the storytelling techniques, the characterization, and some other things there. They're just so amazing to me. And even getting to know that you're still working on the other ones, and I am quite intrigued. It deserves some accolade.
Oh, thank you. Thanks very much. I just do what I do, really. It's, as I say, it's my hobby at the moment. And but saying it's a hobby, it doesn't mean that you don't need to do it properly, like a proper, a full-time author would do it. That's why if I had more time, I'd be releasing them quicker, but I just don't have the time with working full-time to be able to do it. And I get a lot of messages from people saying, when's book 4 coming out? When's book 4 coming out? I'm like, well, just give me a chance. I can't do that quick.
Well, that's great. Now, Craig, as a published author, what sort of advice do you have for other writers who are still struggling with publishing a book like yours? What would you tell anybody in this category?
Okay. Well, it's always a learning curve when you're wanting to publish. I think it's probably, the first thing is write your story, get it right. Get it right for yourself, first of all. What will happen is you'll write your story and then you'll have a read through it and you'll be, oh, this is garbage. I think this is rubbish, I'm going to throw it away. But don't leave it for a week or something, then go back and have a look at it. Go through it, rewrite it, get it so it feels right to you. Okay, and then once you've done that, you need to really get some second opinions and more pairs of eyes on it, really. I've got some very good beta readers who look at it for me, and my editor's really great. With regards to editing the book, you've written books, you know what the deal is with it. You can go through it 100 times and you'll always miss something that needs changing. There might be a typo or something. In most books, even after they've been through all the beta readers and the alpha readers and the art readers and the editors and everybody else, there'll still be typos in there because everybody's human. We miss stuff. But I would say to people is once you've got your book, once you've asked some people who you know or trust about it to have a look through it and give you an honest opinion on it, you really do need to make sure it's edited as well as it can be. Now, not everybody's got money to spend on editors, I understand that, but run it through some spell checking software. There's Grammarly, which is free. There's a free version of that. I think there's ProBook Writer, I think is free as well. You can run it through those sort of things. Polish it as much as you can. You're going to need a decent cover in order to attract attention. Now, again, that when people are flicking through Amazon or the bookstore, the first thing they see is the cover. That's what draws the eye, and then everything flows from there. So you need to have a reasonable cover for it. Again, if you can't afford to pay somebody professional to do it, you've got some options. You can there's a free program called Canva, I think. I've never used it, but you can have that and use it to design your own book cover. You have to do a bit of learning on it, but at the end of the day, writing is hard graft to get everything done. Amazon obviously will generate you a free cover if you can't afford one. They're okay, they're not always brilliant, but you do have the opportunity, I think, to keep telling it to generate it until you get one that you actually like. And just really believe in yourself, because you know, us authors, we're our own worst critics sometimes. People write these things and it might be the next, you know, War and Peace or something, but people don't publish them because, oh, you know, I don't think it's good enough. I don't think it's good enough, which is why it's so important to get second and third opinions on stuff. You've done that. It's the dreaded M word, the marketing, making people aware of it. We've already talked about, you know, the difficulties of being visible. The tried and tested methods, you know, get involved in social media groups. But my advice would be, don't just join a group and then start posting your book, you know, buy this book. Nobody likes that, and everyone, you know, spamming and things like that. You know, actually get involved in some of these groups. You know, have an opinion on some of the people's books. You know, talk to people, network, and things like that. Because word of mouth goes a long way in this side of thing. But the bottom line, I mean, if I can write a book, anybody can. To be honest with you, because I'm not. I wasn't a writer at all. I was a beta reader until I started reading this. So that would be my advice: is write it first, make it as good as you physically can yourself by using various bits and pieces, and then get it out there. You've got nothing to lose.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for your advice. And I'm hopeful that viewers, including myself, would love to utilize it. Thank you so much, Craig, for coming on the show. It's a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you. It's been really good to actually talk to you properly for once, rather than on messages. So, and thank you very much for having me. It's much appreciated. Thank you.
It's a pleasure.